Good afternoon. It's June 16th. It's 1:30. We're in the Tom Baker Room of the City County Building in Bismarck, North Dakota. This is the Bismarck-Mandan Metropolitan Planning Organization Policy Board. Before we start, we'll have the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We can call roll to call the meeting to order, please.
Mayor Berglund.
Here.
Mayor Freilich.
Here.
Commissioner Tokash.
Here.
Commissioner Bakken. And Chair Schmitz.
Here. Item 3 is public comment. It's restricted to items on the current agenda or the prior agenda, excluding any public hearing items. Anyone who wishes to speak, please come forward and identify yourself and tell us the topic. A second call. And seeing no one else in the room, is anyone online that? Public comment period is now closed. Item 4 is a review and approval of the minutes from April 21st. Policy board members?
Move to approve.
Oh, I'm sorry. That's a consent agenda item. So what are your wishes with regard to the consent agenda?
Move to approve.
Second.
Is there any discussion? Hearing none, we'll call roll.
Mayor Berglund.
Yes.
Mayor Freilich.
Yes.
Commissioner Tokash.
Yes.
And Chair Schmitz.
Yes. Moving to item 6, regular agenda, the draft 2027-2028 UPWP program. Is this an update? No. Go ahead.
It is a draft. Thank you very much, Chair Schmitz and members of the board. Is my microphone on? Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, I'm going to move this over a little bit. Exhibit RB on page 39 is the draft 2027-2028 UPWP, or Unified Planning Work Program, for the MPO. This is the 2-year work program and budget for the MPO, but we do update it annually. It does have a little bit of different look to it this year, and so I will go through it. I'll try and go through that fairly quickly. Allow me one moment, and I'll share my screen for you.
Kim, while you're doing that, is our monitor down here?
Uh-oh. I just saw something flash across the screen. It looks like it might be coming up.
Thanks, Matt.
Thank you.
Well, it's closer.
Might take a moment.
Monet.
Maybe you'll have to move the other side of the table, Commissioner.
I can look at this one.
Okay.
I'm fine.
I don't know, it looks like it wants to work, but
Well, go ahead.
you want me to proceed?
Yes, please.
Okay, thank you. Again, we have a little different look, and for the benefit of anybody new here to our UPWP and also our viewers at home, I'll go through this fairly quickly for you. We have reformatted the document, and some of the items have been moved around, so I'll kind of go through that very quickly. There are 3 main sections to the UPWP. We do have the introduction and background, and then the program areas, and we finish up with the appendix. The first change occurred on page 2, and I don't know why I can't get into my pages here. I apologize. This computer is a little different than the one that I use in my office. So I'm not navigating the same. There we go. If we go down this way, here we go. So we begin with the introduction, and then we have moved the MPO boundary map, the planning area boundary map, up to page 2. That's fine, I can do it. This was previously in the very back of the document, but it made more sense to move it up front. And then we have that followed by the board membership composition for both the Technical Advisory Committee and the Policy Board. That is then followed by the meeting dates that are proposed for both years, 2027 and 2028. We then go into our accomplishments. We have a list of our previous accomplishments from 25 and 26, what we anticipate to accomplish prior to the end of this year, and then what we anticipate to undergo for planned work activities in 2027 and 2028. This is followed just by the overview of the UPWP, stating that we have 3 task areas or 3 program areas. And then, of course, we have to notate our source of UPW funds and also our MPO revenue sources. Now, this previously was contained in 2 separate tables. We've just combined this into one to make the information more concise and to save a little bit of space in the document. Page 8 in the document is completely new. This is to address the safe and accessible transportation options, or the Complete Streets, as we refer to it, or CS funding. And what this page does is addresses what that funding program is, how it is addressed within the MPO's work program, and then how the anticipated CS funding for 2027 and 2028 is going to come through, and how that looks with the federal, local, and total for each of those years. This is no longer included in the UPWP as a standalone task category as it was in the previous 2 years, and we've revised it to this method to better align with what North Dakota DOT would have us portray the Complete Streets program in our UPWP as. Moving on, we do address eligible expenses and how those are determined using federal guidelines, as well as the UPWP amendment process, which guides our amendments and administrative modifications, should they become necessary. We address the federal planning factors, and we do address the MTP and federal performance goals with our UPWP projects. That is provided in a table where we do indicate our MTP goals that are addressed by our Program Area 200, which is basically our studies and data acquisition. And then this portion of the UPWP concludes with a timeline for the Metropolitan Transportation Plan update, which will conclude with its adoption in December of 2029. So that is the beginning portion of the UPWP in a nutshell. Any questions on that before we move into program areas? Okay, great. So there are, as I had mentioned previously, 3 program areas to our UPWP. They are Task 100, Administration, Task 200, Professional Services, Vendors, and Consultants, which is basically our studies and our data procurement, and then Task 300, the Capital, Operational, and Travel Expenses. Task 100 covers several pages here, and it provides activities and final products for administration of the MPO program by staff as outlined within our MPO bylaws. And that does conclude on page 60. So there's quite a few pages because it covers all of our activities that staff may perform in the next 2 years. Or reasonably be expected to perform. And that concludes with a table on page 60 that provides the timelines for our required work products, like our Transportation Improvement Program, the UPWP, and the Metropolitan Transportation Plan. And this is for both years of the UPWP. From that, we move into Task 200, which again is our studies and data acquisition. It begins with the purpose outline, what the present status is, and then the work that is being proposed. But really, all of the details are included in the tables that follow. The tables will provide the project name, a description of what that is, total project cost, what has been allocated to the specific year. In this case, we start with 2027. And then we also list our targeted start or contract date of the project, along with the anticipated date of completion. I will tell you that for the year of 2027, we have a very robust year. This project schedule was developed through early and ongoing conversations with our jurisdictions. We started early on in January, in fact, and it was followed by a proposed project schedule with budgets and jurisdictional match that was provided to the jurisdictions, to TAC, and to Policy Board last month for your review. So going through this table, we do have an overview of projects. We do have our standard ATAC master agreement annual fee. That's $10,000 a year. We have study-associated modeling scheduled for the Morton County Future Land Use Plan and Zoning Map Update. That will begin in 2027, and $34,000 of that is allocated to be performed for that project. We also have ATAC performing the Mandan Signalized Intersection Data Collection Pilot Project. We began that project here in 26, early in January. That will conclude in 27, and so $13,000 of that budget will occur in 2027. We have the Transit Development Plan that has just kicked off. That is a $180,000 project with $116,400 projected to be expended in year 2027. The passenger rail station siting study also is going to occur 50-50 in 26, 27, excuse me. And so $112,500 of budget is allocated to year 2027 there. We have the curb management study. That is also going to begin a little bit later here in 26, but it's going to carry through in 27 with $77,000 of budget expended in 2027. Further, we have ATAC beginning our travel demand model update for us in early 2027. That's going to be a $60,000 project. We expect to expend that total funding amount in 2027. And there we do have the Morton County Future Land Use Plan and Map Update. That is the project itself. This is the project, what we had talked about before was just study-associated modeling that ATAC would do for this project. Now this consultant-led project itself will span both years. $76,700 of that will be expended in 27, and then the remainder will carry over to 28. ATAC will begin that travel demand model, or I'm sorry, this is not ATAC. A consultant will be selected to begin the travel demand model and socioeconomic update, and that will be in conjunction with the 2030-2055 Metropolitan Transportation Plan update. This is our largest core product. We are required to update our MTP every 5 years, and so quite a substantial amount of our budget goes to this or over the course of about 2.5 years. We'll begin this in 2027, and so only $45,000 of the budget will be expended in 27 towards that effort. And the two final items that we have in this table are both data procurement items. They both relate to the update of the Metropolitan Transportation Plan. The first is just a placeholder, basically, for the traffic data collection and analysis project that we expect to kick off yet in 2026. We also expect that to be concluded in 2026. However, if there are incidentals that carry over into 27, we want to make sure that we have at least a placeholder for those. And so that's why there is $140 that is allocated to that in 2027, just in case we need to move something into that budget line item for that year. And then we do have the origin destination data procurement. That is also part of our MTP update or to facilitate that. And we expect to be procuring that in 2027 for $35,000. That concludes the 2027 work program. We move into 2028 with quite a few less items. Were there any questions on the 2027 studies or data acquisition? Okay. 2028 is all on one page, and you can see there's quite a bit less there. Again, we have our master agreement fee with ATAC. That's standard. We will be concluding the Morton County Future Land Use Plan. Again, that's going to be $73,300 in year 2028 for its conclusion. And then we will be continuing with the travel demand model, SE projections, and the MTP update. A bulk of the total effort budget will occur in year 2028 at $252,000. And then, of course, that will continue on into 29 before it is adopted. In addition, we are going to attempt to conduct an aerial imagery and LiDAR collection effort in 2028 with any remaining funds. This was indicated by our member jurisdictions that they did want to have this project conducted again as soon as they could. So I think that we can hopefully fit that in. It's a very slim budget for that, and we may have to scale that back a little bit to meet budgetary demands, but we do have that scheduled as well. Any questions on the 2028 budget at all?
Mr. Chairman, I do have
Commissioner, go ahead.
just a quick question. I'm referring to pages, or page 72 in the packet.
Okay.
And when we look at administrative task 100 and staff wages and benefits, we see a reduction there from 2027 to 2028, and also on task 200, professional services. I can understand the professional services depending on what projects we're working on, but can you shed a little more light on why the reduction in staff?
Thank you very much for your question, Commissioner. Yes, actually, that reduction is intentional. I built that in anticipating the potential of a staff vacancy that year with potential retirement looking me in the eyes right now. So just to make sure that we are able to account for that and not be held to a higher level of federal spending than what we could attain.
Yeah, and thank you for the response. I was that did cover my question. I was more concerned that we may see a uptick.
Yeah,
So-
it would probably not be that. With the time that it takes to fill the vacancy, and then, you kind of lose with salaries and benefits and
No, that's fine.
and
Thank
the
you.
wage. Yeah. Okay, thank you. Any other questions at all? No? Okay. The remaining task that we did not cover actually is task 300. It's capital, operational, and travel and expenses. And quite honestly, this is the same format that is outlined in task 100 and 200. It outlines the purpose, which is pretty much anything that is neither administrative or study related. So it's kind of our catch-all. And that is outlined also on this budget worksheet as well. So with that, I will let you know that there were 2 items of comment that we provided at the TAC. First of all, there was a change to the traffic data analysis start date that was listed in the 200 table. That should be indicated as September of 2026 start rather than July as it shows in the document. So that would be one change. And the second change was with these funding tables. While you can get into them electronically and enlarge them and maneuver through them, you can't do that with a paper copy. And so it was suggested that we reformat the tables, reorient them, and do one table per page. So I've I've made that change for a draft as well. Just to let you know that the MPO is accepting any comments or suggestions on the draft UPWP through July 7th. So I've asked any parties who are reviewing to please provide me their comments by that time. It is under review right now by North Dakota DOT oversight, and they also have until July 7th to provide comments to me, at which time we will address comments and revise the document as needed. It would be my intent then to bring a final document back for actual adoption. So today, we're just seeking approval of the draft itself so that it can keep moving through these processes. A final document would then be brought back for adoption. Any questions? I'd be happy to stand for them.
Any other questions?
TAC did recommend approval of the draft document, by the way. I'm sorry.
And we'll have final adoption next month.
Yes, I would anticipate certainly in August, but maybe as early as July.
Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I move to approve the draft 2027-2028 Unified Planning Work Program.
I'd second.
Is there any discussion? Hearing none, we'll call roll.
Mayor Berglund,
Yes.
Mayor Freilich,
Yes.
Commissioner Tokash,
Yes.
and Chair Schmitz.
Yes. Next, item 7, Public Transportation Agency Safety Plan. Paulette.
All right. Thank you very much, Chair Schmitz. Okay, Exhibit RC on page 73, you see the resolution of support for Bismarck Transit's Public Transportation Agency Safety Plan, or PTASP, and its associated safety targets. The Federal Transit Administration, or FTA, requires public transportation operators to develop a PTASP and accompanying safety targets to ensure its operators and public remain safe during transit operations. Thank you, Stephen. The Transit Board adopts or updates these targets and PTASP on an annual basis. Targets may be set by a state Department of Transportation and adopted by local transit providers, or the transit provider may set their own targets separately. And for 2026-2027, Bismarck Transit set its own safety targets and adopted them in May. And FTA requests that the MPO support Bismarck Transit's targets and PTASP, and the MPO staff is requesting the approval of the resolution of support. And yesterday, TAC did recommend approval as presented. Any questions?
Members, any questions? What are your wishes?
Move to approve.
Is there any discussion? Hearing none, we'll call roll.
Mayor Berglund,
Yes.
Mayor Freilich,
Yes.
Commissioner Tokash,
Yes.
and Chair Schmitz.
Yes. Next, item 8, the SFY 2027 Bismarck Transit Mid-Year 5339 Grant Application.
Okay.
Paulette, you're still?
Yes, thank you. Yeah, got it up on the, there we go, thank you. Okay, early last month, the North Dakota Department of Transportation, on May 6th, they had solicited a mid-year grant opportunity for their state fiscal year 2027 Section 5339 grant program, which is a bus and bus facilities program. Bismarck Transit is requesting approval to submit their grant application for this mid-year grant opportunity. And Exhibit RD on page 75, you'll see their application. Bismarck Transit is applying for 2 paratransit cutaway buses. And if awarded, the federal share would be $305,592. Transit would provide a local share of $53,928. Totaling $359,520. The 5339 Transit Grant application was presented and approved at last week's June 9th Bismarck City Commission meeting, and yesterday TAC did vote to recommend approval for the application as well. And we're seeking a recommendation for the approval to submit the 5339 mid-year application.
Any questions,
Any
members?
questions?
What are your wishes?
I would move to approve the 5339 grant application.
Second.
Is there any discussion? Hearing none, we'll call roll.
Mayor Berglund? Yes. Mayor Freilich?
Yes.
Commissioner Tokash?
Yes.
And Chair Schmitz?
Yes. Next, item 9, Bismarck-Mandan MPO self-certification. Tracy will lead us through that.
Okay. The Bismarck-Mandan's MPO self-certification is required by United States Code. The MPOs must certify that their planning processes are being carried out in accordance with federal law, and that the MTP and the TIP that the MPO develops are also consistent with federal law. The self-certification must be updated at least every 4 years, but the MPO updates its self-certification each year as part of the annual TIP development. The self-certification declares MPO compliance with current highway bill legislation, specifically in 10 standards. The Title VI, the Civil Rights Act, the Disadvantaged Business Enterprise, and 5 areas of non-discrimination. Staff is seeking a motion to approve the MPO self-certification, and TAC did recommend approval yesterday. Does the board have any questions at this time?
Doesn't look like it. What would be your wishes, board members?
Mr. Chairman, I move to approve the Bismarck-Mandan MPO self-certification.
Second.
Is there any discussion? Hearing none, we'll call roll.
Mayor Berglund?
Yes.
Mayor Freilich?
Yes.
Commissioner Tokash?
Yes.
And Chair Schmitz?
Yes. Moving to item 10, the 2026 passenger rail study consultant selection. Kim.
Thank you, Chair Schmitz. Members of the board, last Tuesday, June 9th, we did have the pleasure of holding the interview for the Bismarck-Mandan MPO's passenger rail station siting study. The selection team representatives were from the City of Bismarck, City of Mandan, City of Lincoln, and both Burleigh County and Morton County as well. One proposer was interviewed. It was KLJ as the prime contractor, along with David Evans and Associates and Ubel Design Group as subconsultants on the project. We were authorized by North Dakota DOT to interview a sole respondent. We received that authorization on May 19th, in fact. And so we went through the entire qualification-based selection process, which meant that we conducted the interview, went through the scoring and ranking exercises. The selection committee's scoring indicated their support for the firms in their proposal and interview presentation, and MPO staff recommends KLJ along with David Evans and Associates and Ubel Design Group as the firm with which to negotiate and execute a contract. TAC did recommend approval of the consultant selection and the contract negotiations and execution, and I would be happy to stand for questions.
Any questions? What are your wishes?
I would move to approve the Bismarck-Mandan MPO 2026 passenger rail station siting study with the consultant.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll call roll.
Mayor Berglund?
Yes.
Mayor Freilich?
Yes.
Commissioner Tokash?
Yes.
And Chair Schmitz?
Yes.
Chair Schmitz? There is one additional item on that.
Okay.
And it is the qualification-based certification letter. It is included as, let's see, I think item RF on page 91 in your packet. Just as an informational purpose, this does not require any formal action, but this is a letter certifying that the MPO has gone through the entire qualification-based selection process as outlined by North Dakota DOT. It will be signed by the policy board chair to certify that, and then we do submit that to North Dakota DOT for their inspection as an informational item.
All right. And no action required?
None necessary.
Okay. Moving to item 11, the North Dakota DOT 2026-2027 Unified Planning Work Program Update Contract Amendment.
Thank you, Chair. Members of the board, you may remember that last month, the MPO processed an amendment to our 2026-2027 UPWP. This was to reflect a funding source change. It was due to an increase in FTA funding that was received, so we had to change our funding sources, and our budget was revised as well. Exhibit RG in the packet on page 93 is a contract amendment from North Dakota DOT to address this funding source change. This is a very standard contract amendment, and it will reflect the additional $1,031.93 that was received from FTA funding to our year 2026 in the MPO UPWP. Once this goes through for signing, it is actually signed electronically through DocuSign by the Bismarck Board, the President of the Bismarck Board of Commissioners. So, any questions on this particular amendment?
Mr. Chairman, just a quick question.
Sure.
Can you define subrecipient? Is this the MPO or?
Yes. So in this case, the actual contract is buy-in between North Dakota DOT and the city of Bismarck. And the reason for that is that because they are our host agency for the MPO. And so due to the funding situation that we have and the financial arrangement for financial management, that's who the contract is with, and that's who the amendment is with. So the subrecipient in this case actually is the MPO, but by way of the city of Bismarck, and that's why the president of the Board of City Commissioners signs on this.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? Not, what are your wishes, members?
Move to approve.
A second?
Is there any discussion? Hearing none, we'll call roll.
Mayor Berglund,
Yes?
Mayor Freilich,
Yes.
Commissioner Tokash,
Yes.
and Chair Schmitz.
Yes. Item 12 is the 2026 Fringe Area Roadmap Master Plan. Joel?
Thank you, Chair Schmitz. Good afternoon, members of the board. I'm going to share a brief update today because we have been working with staff on a draft of the overall plan, which is going to be in a couple different formats that I'll share here. And I'm sharing the wrong screen. Pardon me, bear with me a second. Okay, there we go. As a quick overall update, we're working on that draft to start a public review period next month. Our current schedule has us meeting with the project steering committee next week, and we'll give them some time to share comments and thoughts that would potentially lead to some revisions to have a full public draft up for review starting in the middle of July. And we intend to have that in a couple different formats. There's a report, to read through with figures and tables and that kind of conventional presentation of information. But because the nature of this plan is so much about the road network as it expands, we actually have the network in a map in a dynamic format that we're setting up to allow people to, kind of pan through a map and query specific road alignments and apply comments that way, similar to how we had a public comment map tool earlier in the process. That current schedule would put us on track to get things revised in the middle of August and begin presentations to the member jurisdictions in August. And if all of that moves forward, if we don't have major changes to make from any of the comments that we get from steering committee or the public or others, we would be on track to bring this back to the TAC and Policy Board of the MPO for approval of the plan at the September meetings. So that's the current plan. We'll keep you posted in the coming months if there's anything that changes that, but that's what we're currently working toward. To give some technical updates, this is a concept that we've talked about in some of our past updates to you, that the plan has moved from being just an advisory document to having a little bit more of a policy framework around this major regional corridors network that would let the MPO kind of understand where major transportation investments need to happen around growth areas and make sure that those can happen and that individual development decisions aren't creating some challenge or obstacle that gets in the way of building out a network to have a true regional function. we don't intend for this apply to everything that the plan had mapped out originally. This is to be used sparingly, judiciously. But it's really looking at a few kind of major connecting corridors for various purposes. Either they're covering long distances or they're making a really critical connection over something like a river crossing or a railroad or adding a freeway interchange. And simply giving the MPO a place to say that any development that changes this, significantly, something that we need to define specifically what that means in working with staff, but any development that changes these opportunities to make a true regional connection here, the MPO can weigh in on this and say, we want to make sure this fits. We want to make sure that we're prioritizing projects that really do help the region overall and using our limited financial resources that way. So you're able to provide that kind of advice and hopefully, get the member jurisdictions approving that development on the same page to see that, yep, a different solution to this would kind of serve everything. But what we haven't gotten into specifically is what happens with the network map. So you have that kind of high level policy framework approach that we've been talking about before. What we're also doing with the plan as part of this draft is taking a look at more specific locations. And as you know, the plan had identified a series of hotspots that are these kind of complex transportation challenges around physical features like terrain or river crossings, or places where development activity might have already started to change the options that you have for making some of these connections. So this is a fictionalized, very abstract example of the kinds of things that the hotspots are defining. They were identified to look at challenges like, we want to get a better connection in our network, but we have this major terrain, barrier in the way, and what do we do about that? So the work that the planning team has been doing is to look at those kinds of challenges, explore multiple alternatives in some cases for what might work. But in each of those alternatives, think about what the after effects would be of making that kind of a project decision and what you would need to do with the rest of the fringe area network to accommodate it. So I'm going to pick one here. Again, these are all hypothetical, not based in fact, but say if we're trying to get over terrain and this is the alternative out of some that ends up getting chosen, it means that other things need to happen with the network as well. You have to be very careful about where spacing of intersections and access points happens to keep this road functioning, keep it safe, to keep it, serving the kind of transportation purpose it's supposed to. But then you might need to be looking at other parts of the network as well and saying, let's tailor this to some of the challenges that we've seen and make sure we're getting good street connections through, but not, asking those to do very difficult or impossible things for developers. So there's that work going on to refine the overall network, and that'll be part of what is shared with the draft. So again, looking at September is when this would come back to the board, but we will have a couple of updates between now and then, and we can give feedback on what we're hearing from public comment or ways that some of these detailed parts of the plan are taking shape. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Anyone have questions?
I don't have a question, but I do have a comment. I do appreciate that Lincoln's Future City Center is being recognized as part of that regional destination. That's going to help with our long-term case for economic development and transportation investment. So appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anything else? Doesn't look like it, Joel. Thank you.
Thank you.
Other business?
Chair Schmitz, members of the board, very briefly, this will be our last meeting, regular scheduled meeting for 2026 that occurs here in Bismarck. We will be moving to the Mandan City Hall at 205 2nd Avenue Northwest for our July 21st meeting and continuing through our December meeting for 2026. So hopefully see you all there at 1:30 next month.
All right.
I also just have a very quick other business item to let you know that the proposal period for the curb management study for Bismarck did close earlier this month, and we received 3 proposals that were. So we will be holding interviews of those consultants, which will be KLJ, Walker Consulting, and SRF on early July, late June, and hoping to bring the selection committee's selected consultant back to the boards in July
Okay.
for potential approval. So,
Right. Does anyone else have any other business? Seeing none, hearing none, we are adjourned.